Hi everyone, welcome back to How to Train Your Gavin. Today I'm going to go through some LGBTQ plus middle grade book recommendations. Now a lot of these I've read, a few of them I have not yet read but are on my immediate TBR, they're on my radar, I cannot wait to read them. But Pride Month is just around the corner in the UK, so I thought it would be a great time to share some of these recommendations with you. Some of these you might have heard of, some of them you might not have heard of, but one thing is clear, there needs to be more LGBTQ plus representation in middle grade. So without further ado, let's get into my recommendations. So this will be in alphabetical order by author surname. However, the first book that I want to shout out, I have an agenda for. Firstly, I do want to recommend the middle grade monthly book of the month, which is Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow by Benjamin Dean. I do co-host a book club called Middle Grade Monthly, and we do read one middle grade book every month, and this is the June pick, which we thought was perfect for Pride. I've already read it and absolutely adored it. I actually have an interview with the author, which I will link up here or down in the description box. So this book follows Archie, and his parents have split up. His mum and dad are keeping huge secrets from him, and he wants to find out what it is that they're hiding from him. So one day he ends up finding a flyer in his father's pocket, and this flyer is about a Pride festival in London. So Archie, along with his best friends, go to London, go to Pride, and they try to find out what it is that their dad is hiding. This is a beautiful exploration of loads of different people under the LGBTQ plus umbrella, and there is just so many great scenes at Pride that I think will just make your heart burst with emotion. Definitely give this one a read. It is a middle grade monthly book club pick for June, so please do join us for this. There will be a live show for this at the end of June on my channel. I'm super excited to reread this because I just adored it with my whole heart. So now going into alphabetical by author surname, I just really wanted to shout that one out first. So the first book is one that I'm really excited to read, and it comes out tomorrow, I believe, and that is The Ship We Built by Lexie. And when I say tomorrow, I mean today. I'm filming this is May 25th, so May 26th this one comes out. And this one follows Rowan, who is in 5th grade in the late 90s, and they are questioning their identity and what it means to be a boy and what it means to be a girl. It goes through the experiences of Rowan being a young trans boy, and especially in that time period too. So I have read some Own Voices reviews of this, and they have said it's fantastic and that they have needed to take a moment to have a breath after reading it. So do go into it with that in mind. I know I am so excited to read it, but it's not out yet in the UK, so I need to wait for it, but it has been on my radar for a very long time. Rowan does end up writing some secrets on balloons and releasing the balloons into the universe in the hopes that somebody will be able to read and understand their loneliness and their heartbreak and what they're going through. And it does show you that showing kindness to at least one person can really save their life. From this Own Voices review on Goodreads as well, there are trigger warnings for implied child sexual abuse, parental neglect and abuse, transphobia, homophobia, internalized transphobia and homophobia, and suicidal thoughts. So please do go into it bearing that in mind. But judging from reviews, it sounds like it's going to be such an eye-opening and a really important books for kids to read. Then we have Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World by Ashley Herring Blake. So this one follows Ivy, and in her small town, a tornado sweeps through, and a notebook that she had been drawing pictures of girls holding hands in has gone missing. Ivy's drawings then start to reappear with notes from somebody who is telling her to come out about her identity. So Ivy is questioning, but she is interested in other girls, and with this being a middle grade contemporary novel, it has all of the emotion as well. So next, I would love to recommend King and the Dragonflies by Kacen, Callender, one of the best contemporary middle grade books I've ever read. This one follows King, whose brother Khalid died, but he believes that his brother has been turned into a dragonfly. Now, one of the last things that he remembers Khalid saying to him was to tell him to stop hanging out with his gay friend Sandy. And Khalid, his brother, told him, "You don't want people to think you're gay too, do you?" Well, King ends up questioning his own sexuality during the entirety of this book. It does explore themes of identity, race, sexuality, and told in such a beautiful, beautiful way that I think, yeah, a lot of kids would absolutely love as well. The next two books are George and Rick by Alex Gino. So in George, we follow George, who is a girl, but everybody sees her as a boy because that is who she was born as. All she wants is to play Charlotte in Charlotte's Web. However, because everybody else sees her as a boy, she is not given the role. So this deals fantastically with transphobia, but also how adults approach it as well, because honestly, some of the teachers in here need educating themselves. It can be heartbreaking, but very uplifting at the same time. And then in Rick, we end up following a character who used to be friends with George in the first book, or like previous to the first book, and Rick is best friends with a bully who usually bullies George as well. So this goes through Rick's own questioning of his own identity, as well as standing up against bullies. This examines asexuality as as well as pronouns, and I think it's just like really educational for kids to read in such a unique way. And I did absolutely love seeing the development of a side character from George. So two really great books by Gino. I would really recommend them. The next one is Proud of Me by Sarah Hagger-Holt. This one follows Becky and Josh, who are almost twins. They have two mums and the same donor dad. Josh can't wait until he turns 18 so that he can find out who their donor dad is, whereas Becky, she doesn't really care about that. All she cares about is the fact that she has a crush on a girl at school. Becky and Josh both want their family to be proud of them in different ways, and they're both struggling to accept themselves. So as you can see, like a big theme through these books is the theme of acceptance and learning to love oneself. And I feel like this is another book that I have not yet read. I'm reading it in June, but I think it's going to explore that theme so brilliantly, as all middle grade contemporaries that I've read does so well. Also, having a family that isn't the traditional family by having same-sex parents is also something that really draws me towards this novel. I haven't read many other middle grade books that have same-sex parents, so again, we need more of it, and fortunately this one is a pretty brand new one, and I'm so looking forward to reading it. If fantasy is a bit more your thing, then The Strangeworlds Travel Agency by L.D. Lapinski. This one follows Flick, who ends up moving town with her parents, and she goes into this travel agency that's quite run down, but it's run by Jonathan. And on the walls of this agency are suitcases, and when you step into those suitcases, you end up getting transported into whole new worlds. There's a whole system of it. There's like a multiverse of different fantasy worlds, and Flick, she is queer, and Jonathan is a trans man. And these things aren't the focus of the story at all. It's still about the fantasy element and the story element. But if you are looking for LGBTQ plus characters that really drives the story forward, then this is your best bet. The second book, The Edge of the Ocean, does deal with, you know, some crushes being had, and it's just one of my favourite fantasy middle grade series, so definitely give it a chance. I love Flick and Jonathan so much. Jonathan is one of my favourite middle grade characters of all time. LGBTQ plus middle grades that are fantasy, I have barely read any or come across very many. They seem to be more contemporary than anything else. So to see representation in middle grade fantasy is just amazing. One that is coming out at the end of June in the UK, but I think it's out in America now, is Thanks a Lot Universe by Chad Lucas. So this one is pretty much a middle grade coming of age novel where we have Brian, who is very socially awkward. He ends up getting placed into foster care, and he ends up trying to like retreat from other people. And then we have Ezra, who is quite popular, and when his friends start to date girls, he realizes that he would rather date a boy, and he has a crush on Brian. Ezra also says that Brian is retreating from everyone and that he's going through some things, and there's just like this really sweet, that I've read anyway from reviews, there is a sweet relationship that develops and blooms between these two boys, and it just sounds like such a wholesome, beautiful book, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it as soon as it is released in the UK. It is honestly rude that I have to wait a whole month after America gets it, like. The next book on this list is Hurricane Season by Nicole Melleby. So this one follows 6th grader Fig, and she has some like serious issues at home, and her father really tries, he does try, but there are things that happen and it causes a social worker to end up overseeing their lives. During an art class, she learns more about Van Gogh and his mental health struggles, and she starts to really relate to Van Gogh. Fig does have a crush on a girl at school too, so we do have explorations of sexuality, of identity, and all of the good stuff that we usually find with middle grade contemporaries that deal with LGBTQ plus themes. The next one, there is a little bit of debate whether this is middle grade or YA, but I would still love to include it in this video because I would like to consider it middle grade, and that is The Magic Fish by Trung Nguyen. Tien has parents who are refugees. His parents struggle to learn English, and Tien doesn't know how to come out in Vietnamese. However, he sees fairy tales as a universal kind of language, and he wants to come out through fairy tales. Usually the prince does fall in love with the princess, however Tien has a different story to tell. This is a graphic novel and a gorgeous one at that. Next we have The Moon Within by Aida Salazar. This one does have a straight protagonist, but her best friend is exploring being gender fluid. So Kelly is about to have her first period, and her mum is insisting that she has this Mexican tradition ritual that happens when all girls get their period. Kelly does not want to participate in that, and she has to learn how to stand up for herself and be who she is. Another fantastic coming of age story, and we do have Marco, who is her best friend, learning what it means and exploring what it means to be gender fluid, which is the LGBTQ plus part of this book. There is a great parallel between Kelly and Marco, and it's just a fantastic book all around. Finally, we have The List of Things That Will Not Change by Rebecca Stead. So this one follows Bea, and her parents are now divorced. Her dad is going to be marrying a man called Jesse, and she's really excited for the wedding, and she's excited to have a sister that she's never had because her dad's boyfriend has a daughter too. There's great exploration of facing homophobia as a child, especially when you have a recently out queer parent, which has a similar theme to Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow. She does carry around a green notebook where she lists things that will not change due to her parents' sexuality, especially as she tackles anxiety and depression and the idea that her family will never be the same again. Because there was barely any fantasy on this list, I do have 3 other fantasy books that just have an LGBTQ plus character in it, but they're not really an important part of the story, because I really do want more fantasy middle grade with LGBTQ plus characters. So the 3 that I would like to briefly shout out are Moonchild, Voyage of the Lost and Found by Aisha Bushby. This one, the main character, she has 2 sea witch mothers, and they usually live on the sea. However, an accident means that they have to dock the ship and go into town, which they never really have been into before, and it sets off this whole adventure. So they aren't really an important part of the story, however, it does feature, again, same-sex parents, and I just absolutely adore this story in general. We also have Tilly and the Map of Stories, the 3rd book in the Pages and Core series by Anna James. There is a gay couple in the 3rd book, and it's very explicit that they are a couple, they are married, and they own a bookshop, and it's just incredible. So definitely check out the series so that you can get to this book for the LGBTQ plus rep. And finally, The Hatmakers by Tamsin Merchant. Out of all of the middle grades I've read, I think this might be the first one where there was an actual kiss, and it didn't shy away from that, and there are 2 adult characters who are LGBTQ plus, and it's just like such a fantastic moment that I adored with my entire heart. But yes, The Hatmakers, a great book in general. I loved the representation in this, but it isn't a big part of the story. It's just a moment, really, or 2 moments. Yeah, there's 2 moments actually, but it's just I love the way it was done, so I would recommend checking out this one too. So that's it. Those were my LGBTQ plus middle grade book recommendations. I hope I can do it again next year with 1,000 more recommendations. I hope publishing gets so much LGBTQ plus middle grades in 2022, 2021. I just want more. I just need more. I need it all. Well, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like if you did enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment. Let me know if you have any great LGBTQ plus middle grade recommendations. I would absolutely love to hear them and check them out. And I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!